So we are live. This is the weekly webinar series, and this is part 3 of our Access Network series, which is awesome. So I'm going to put them all together. You're going to have a pretty encapsulated viewpoint, which is 3 total hours of training on access networks and a little bit about the Wi-Fi 6 and also the trainings that we got going around the country, which we're excited about. We've done really well. It's been 2 months that we've been kind of touring. So check your event section for something coming by your area and get on into the stores and take the training. I highly suggest it. This is probably just a snippet. In fact, I think a lot of what you talked about, Bryce, is kind of unique to this training a little bit, which is awesome. I'd like to have a little bit of unique features on these things. So if a partner went to the trainings and then, kind of watched 3 hours of this virtual version, they're getting a pretty good updated view of this whole topic and discussion, and networking is certainly such a huge category for us.
Yeah, I think the difference with this training is we're trying to connect the dots on why using these services versus in live in-person trainings, we're saying these are the services and we go a little bit deeper into what they are. But this is also about trying to paint a picture of the benefits to the business. So yeah, let's I think we'll dive in, we'll get rolling, and we'll go from there.
Good enough. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. All right, so what we're going to be talking about today is managed services and managed services from Access Networks, specifically as part of Snap One, and the things we can do to help you with your business and with network solutions. A little bit about me. I'm the VP of Managed Services within Snap One. I also am the General Manager of Access Networks. I've been with Access Networks and Snap One now for almost a combined of 10 years. I run the Access Networks business inside of Snap One, along with developing some new strategies that we have on the managed service side. I started my career in 12 volt. There's a lot of people in the industry that started there. I still own an integration company. I put that loosely. My wife runs the business and owns the business. So we are married though, so therefore it's co-ownership. That was a business I started back in 2006, still going strong. So and again, my job is to guide Access Networks as we become a more integral part of Snap One. We're still somewhat standalone, but the product and things like that is starting to be rolled into Snap One. So, so what are managed services? Managed services is a very broad term. It's something that I think, if you think about it, you could put a bunch of different things into that bucket. But really, the goal or the kind of the reason for managed services is utilizing a third party and for that service. And that could be to create efficiency. It could be to increase profitability. And the biggest reason is to gain expertise in a subject matter where maybe learning it is time consuming or unrealistic. A lot of what we do takes a lot of time to learn, especially at the enterprise level of networking. And it can be years of studying and qualifications. We have a lot of very qualified people on our team that 100% focus on networking. And it's something that a lot of integration companies don't have the bandwidth or the time to do. So that's what we're here for. And ultimately, the reason why you would use a managed service, such as the things I'm going to show you today, is because we can't be everything to everyone. Meaning, integration companies are typically jacks of all trade. You have to be able to understand everything about a home, from the networking to the plumbing to the shading to the lighting to the audio, video, kitchen appliances, everything that may possibly integrate into the home or be controlled or connect to a network. You have to understand that, and that means that it's very difficult to be the expert in all of those. So that's what we're here for, to help you with those things. And today we're going to go through some services that would help you create a better, stronger business by utilizing a team such as Access Networks and Snap One. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you today about is ARC. ARC is our cloud-based wireless controller solution. So understanding wireless controllers, for a long time, we had a hardware-based wireless controller. It's the box there on the left. And these were great. I mean, we made a living on these things for a long time. And that was, if you look at technology, Wi-Fi didn't really start accelerating until recently. There was a lot of variations of Wi-Fi, but the technology was more or less the same. And a lot of that had to do with processing, computing power technologies. And so, but what's happened recently is the technology has accelerated. You've got Wi-Fi 6 out now, you've got Wi-Fi 7 coming down. So you've got a much heavier adoption and acceleration of technology. And the problem with hardware-based controllers is they're hardware-based. They fail, they age out. They have processors built into them that no longer can handle the technologies that we're moving towards. And so you've got that issue. You've also got a redundancy solution that is complicated because you've got to have two of these boxes now that have the same issues. You have a restrictive license management, meaning that on these they came preloaded with a certain number of licenses, and those licenses you got no matter what, but you paid for them. You may not have used them all. In our case, it was 8 licenses, but we had a lot of partners doing 5, 6 access points in the system, so they've got 2 licenses that they technically paid for, although they didn't use. And then it's an aging platform with limited processing power. So as we move into these newer technologies, we didn't have really the bandwidth in that product to be able to support what's coming down the pipe. So what we've moved towards is ARC, which is our cloud-based controller. The controller lives in the cloud, and it is a true wireless controller, meaning that it is doing real-time management and monitoring of the access points in a deployment. It's not just a configuration tool. It is looking at traffic, it's looking at RF strength, it's looking at overlap, it's looking at a lot of different things happening in the Wi-Fi environment and making adjustments or changing settings based on that information. And that's something that we've been doing for years and years and years. But now it's built into the cloud, and that creates automatic redundancy. There's no need for additional hardware components. There's no need for additional pieces and parts because we've got that redundancy in the cloud. And our cloud has redundancy. We have a cluster of controllers, and then we have multiple locations where those controllers exist. So even if we have a provider outage of we use Google Cloud to host this. Even if we have a provider outage, we have redundancy built in there. So survivability is what that's all about. ARC also gives you a much easier deployment model, remote management tools, and deep level troubleshooting, very similar to what we saw in the cloud in the hardware-based controller. The nice thing about this is you're not wasting money. You use the exact license count per site that you need for that site. So if you have 5 access points, you need 5 licenses. If you have 25 access points, you buy 25 licenses. It makes it very scalable. There's also been significant developments for Wi-Fi calling. ARC actually has a whole setup part of the configuration that addresses Wi-Fi calling, registering the cell provider web their URLs so that we can actually help the cell phone make the correct decision on when to be on Wi-Fi calling and when to actually move to the cell tower, so we're not getting dropped calls or having to put the phone in airplane mode or something like that to make sure Wi-Fi calling works. So very robust Wi-Fi calling features, which did not exist in the standard controller. And then clearly a recurring revenue opportunity for your business. And we'll get more into that. That's a huge deal because a lot of the other things in the industry are moving towards that. And if you're doing services-based, if you're doing a service-based organization where you're actually providing contracts for your clients to remote manage their systems or monitor their systems and do cleanings and do site visits and things like that, where it's a set fee, you can roll this into the cost of that and provide additional value for your client. So that's where we're going with the wireless controller. And so let's talk about what the advantages are of ARC. Well, one, it's creating Wi-Fi efficiency. You can scale your business around it. ARC simplifies the process of installing and deployment and managing the access points. It's a single pane of glass deployment. It's very fluid, very easy to use. We have training that we go through, and then once you understand it, it literally can take you minutes to set up an entire Wi-Fi configuration. You have the ability to save time. So because we use zones and templates, and the access points can be configured prior to actually being installed, meaning that you're configuring the zone in the cloud first, and then adding the serial numbers and devices to that zone. As soon as you plug those access points in and they're connected, they are going to get their configuration and start working. That takes a few minutes. So it's a very robust way to save time. And then the other beautiful part about ARC is that you can standardize your network deployment. So if you have a standard way of doing things, you can use a template for that, and it can be repeated over and over and over for smaller deployments. And then once you have that really big custom system that, the once a year kind of project, we can also help you customize it to meet the needs of a very large scale. And that could be residential or commercial. Either way, we do both. And we want to make sure that whatever we're doing in that customization, we're meeting the client's needs. So you can have this rinse and repeat kind of version, and then you can go very customized. Scale, as I mentioned earlier, is not an issue. We have clusters, and we have cloud. We have multiple locations for the clusters, and now we have multiple clusters of clusters. There isn't really a limit to scale the way we're managing this system. So you can rest assured that we have the ability to support multiple deployments nationwide, depending on how you want to go about doing that. And really, it's in all contexts, it's infinite. I mean, there isn't really a limit to how many wireless deployments we can support, and it could be one access point, or it could be 100 access points in each one of those locations. Just depends on what the business model is, or what the homeowner request is. You can service anywhere, so you can configure, adjust, troubleshoot from the ARC wireless network from anywhere in the world where you're connected. It's a URL, so you're logging into that remotely. And so the accessibility is quite strong, and it's not a limited, like when you log into it, it's not just a surface level, it's deep level troubleshooting and configuration capability. It's everything that you need access to in that ARC instance, single pane of glass. So it's great for technicians that are busy, or if you run a very lean crew and they're needing to make adjustments for a customer somewhere else, but they're on a job somewhere, they can just log right in and troubleshoot and make adjustments and move on. And they can also use our team, and our team can log in and assist them if they're having trouble with something. Because it is cloud-based, we have all the remote access that you want to grant us to look at those sites. So the last one is build revenue. I touched on this a little bit earlier. ARC offers a low cost of entry because of the costs associated to it. There's a one-time license fee, and then an annual support renewal that's $20 per access point. So it's not very expensive. We don't assign a retail to that, so you could actually take to that and incorporate it into your service plan and charge what you feel your market bears. So you have a lot of flexibility there on building revenue and a revenue stream around a recurring revenue model for your business. So very, very robust way to build revenue. So those are the things that benefit your business, the things that create efficiency. You're saving time. You can go standardized templates or fully custom. You have an unlimited amount of scale. You can service it from anywhere, and you can build revenue for your business. Now, how do these things apply to your customer? What's the benefit for your client? So when we're talking about creating Wi-Fi efficiency, that means unmatched performance. We have flexibility to accommodate your client's lifestyle. We really want to focus in on how does your client live, and what kind of Wi-Fi solution or network solution do we need to provide that will allow them to live the way they want to live. And we have a ton of obviously the performance of our product, and then the flexibility to configure and manage that with efficiency. We're saving time in and out of your client's home in a flash. That's really important. Your clients don't want you in their house. Like, once you're done, you leave, they want you to go away. That's the reality of our world. But when you do have to go back, if you have to go back, you want to be in and out quickly. And ARC gives you a ton of tools to do so. And sometimes, and a lot of the times, you're not even going to have to go, because you have so many tools at your disposal through the cloud that you won't have to go. But if you have a product failure, you'll be able to identify that before you get there, end up there, do whatever issue, fix whatever issue it is, and get in and out quick. So you're saving them time and saving yourself time. Again, back to the standardize or customize, being able to meet the needs of your client and their complex situations, whether it be a home or a business. We have run into some very complex business situations, and we can customize networks to meet those needs. And ARC gives us a ton of flexibility and customization there. Scalability. So if you have a client that has multiple homes or businesses, all configured and controlled and managed through a single pane of glass. So you could have all their homes, if they have multiple homes, configured exactly the same. and you could manage those through one single location or one single through the ARC instance, and then you could make changes and reference those inside of the same experience. You're not having to go, log out of something, log back into something else. You can see all of that right in front of you. Very, very powerful. And then if they have businesses, then it really gets into where you can scale from a business perspective. You can have the same Wi-Fi configuration for all of their businesses. You can associate access points to different locations. You could repurpose access points from one location to another. There's a ton of power there. It's incredibly flexible, and that's what it was originally built on, was managing multiple businesses from one location. Service Anywhere, we talked about this. We don't want to interrupt their lifestyle or their life if we can solve problems remotely. And because of the level of troubleshooting that we have available to us in ARC, you can do a lot of that remotely and not have to interrupt their life. And being able to do that from anywhere, as long as you're connected and their home is online, you'll be able to get in and troubleshoot that. And ultimately, it's a low cost of ownership. If you think about what it costs for Wi-Fi, and in our old controller platform where we had a hardware piece and we had to upgrade it, we had to put a brand new controller in. The way the ARC works is, once you have the license for the access point and you've got that up and running, and let's say they're on Wi-Fi 6 now and they want to go to Wi-Fi 7 in the future, you don't need to replace the controller because it's cloud-based. You don't need to buy new licenses because the license doesn't care what access point it's connected to. What you do is you just replace the access points in that zone or in that site and keep trucking. So you've got the ability to go from Wi-Fi 6 to Wi-Fi 7 by merely replacing the access points and putting the correct serial numbers in the correct place in the cloud, and they'll get provisioned and start running. And you can even have a mix of those technologies. You don't have to replace them all at one time. So extremely low cost of ownership for the end customer to have all of that flexibility. So those are the benefits of ARC for you and your client. If you would like to have a much deeper dive into what ARC looks like and how it actually operates, then you should connect with our team and we can run you through that. And we have a demonstration and a hands-on where we show you actually how it all works and the flexibility. And if you have any questions, go ahead and throw those in the chat. I'd be happy to answer them now or at the end. But ARC is extremely flexible, extremely nimble, and will bring a ton of benefit to your business from a network deployment perspective. All right, we're going to talk about core managed systems now. These are this is kind of what Access Networks was built on, is our custom network solutions, and we really have two different ways that we go to market with these systems. We have two different solutions. We have core wired and wireless network solutions. So that's the one on the left. And that is a complete network. So all of the wired product, meaning firewall, we use our ARC cloud-based controller. You have your choice of access points. You have the primary switch and obviously additional switches as needed, depending on the complexity and size of the network. And then we have our live monitoring and the Helix device that provides that for us. And then you can also do a core wireless system. I'm going to touch on core wireless really quickly here. Core wireless is built on ARC. The difference between core wireless and what I just showed you on ARC is where you would buy some access points, manage it yourself, set up your zones, configure it, do all those things. That's what we call, an unmanaged ARC solution, meaning we're not managing it for you, but you're doing it yourself. On core wireless, it's us doing everything for you. So basically you say, here, I want these access points. I want to use ARC as my controller. And then you give us the SSIDs, passwords. We completely configure the network before it leaves. And so you have functioning access points out of the box, meaning you don't have to wait for them to connect and get firmware updated or anything. That literally connect them and your Wi-Fi will turn on. We'll have already set your SSIDs, your passwords, all of those things, so that when it is up and running, it is the finished network if you want it to be. To give you an example on something like this, I had a client when I was working with Access Networks with my integration company, and they bought a new house out in Henderson, Nevada, and I didn't have time to send anybody up there, and they wanted the same basic configuration as they had on their house in Newport Beach, and they have a house manager at the house, and I said, hey, we can send you some access points. You've got a network there with PoE, you just plug them in the different locations and they'll work, because they wanted to get a network up as quickly as possible so the homeowner could come there and work. And I put an order into Access, gave them the configuration information, sent it out. I think it went out the next day. They had it up in Henderson the day after that. So they had a working Wi-Fi solution in 2 days. And that's something that, you know, if I had to go pick up the gear, go configure it, and this is a nominal fee when you look at the grand scheme of what these things cost to have that completely configured and plug and play out of the box. It was a very, very seamless process for me. And I, you know, cashed a check basically when that was done. So you can use Core Wireless in that scenario where you're in a pinch and you need to get something done and you need to get it shipped, and you have somebody that can go install it and have a working Wi-Fi network quickly. Now, as far as our big systems, the Core 2, Core 3, the custom core networks where we're doing layer 2 or layer 3 multi-VLAN solutions, there's kind of some pre-deployment things that we work through, which is one, we want to know if it's residential or commercial. We do have both options in our portal, and we handle those differently depending on what the complexities of those systems are. You can actually start a design request from our portal for both residential and commercial, and that's myaccessnetworks.com. You do have to sign up with us separately from Snap One. We do have a separate sign up process as a dealer still. That will be probably by the end of this year that will be sorted out. Where if you're a Snap One partner, you'd be able to access our stuff as well. But it's a very quick sign up process. And then once you have that signed up, you can go in and you can put in design requests, and our team will take it from there. The nice thing about those design requests is once we gather all the information regarding your project, and it's an online form that you provide that information, upload floor plans, those kind of things. Our design engineers and our network engineers who actually do the configuration work very, very closely together to review those and make sure that we're providing an adequate design based on the requirement. So, and inside of each one of those custom networks, again, you have a firewall, you have a monitoring device, you have a number of switches depending on how many are needed for the project, and clearly the access points that you need, and then our cloud-based controller. So what happens after we get all the design information and we complete the design and we send it back to you? Well, what you're going to get back is an estimate, which will show you what your dealer costs will be and what our suggested MSRP is for that. And it's always just a fixed cost. There's no additional cost to this. So you'll get, you know, the package price for the main part of the package, and then any access points, additional switches will all be line itemed in that. And it kind of tells you, you know, how many ports you're going to have, how many ports are still available, so on and so forth. You're also going to get a network diagram, and the network diagram will show the access points, how everything connects. And the nice thing about this network diagram is when you get it back, this would actually be what your technicians would use to understand how to connect the product in the field when they install it. So this is, you know, powerful from a visualization perspective. And then the other thing that you're going to get is an access point layout. So we'll give you, if you have the floor plans, we'll give you an access point layout with the access point locations. Now, we do heat maps upon request right now, but we will be moving to heat maps included on every project, hopefully by the end of this month. So if you're looking for a visual representation when you go and meet with your client and you show them, you know, here's my heat map, or here's the heat map of your home with your Wi-Fi access point locations. That's incredibly powerful to explain why they need the level of network they do in the size home they do, because they will be able to look at this and go, well, if I remove this access point, I'm not going to have all the wonderful green that shows good coverage on my heat map anymore if I pull that out. So they're less likely to pull out access points and cut back on the system. So those are coming soon, and that will be the standard that we will deliver back to you on any of these designs, is that heat map. So you get those three things back from us, and then, you know, a client reviews it, says, hey, this is great, let's move forward with the entire project, because that's what they always say, and we want to make sure that that's what they always say and help you get there. So then what happens next? Well, we get the configuration details. We obviously need a purchase order from you to order the system. We get the configuration details that are supplied by you and your client, basically you collecting all that information, inputting it into our system, and then we start configuring based on that. Now, you are in control, meaning you pick SSIDs, you pick the IP schemes, you pick the passwords, you pick you know, VPN information, all of that information, the port assignments is picked by you. We will follow that as long as it's technically correct, meaning we can only, there's certain IP schemes that are LAN and certain that are WAN. We can only use LAN IP schemes, so on and so forth. So we make sure that that is all correct. And then our engineers, who are highly certified both in Ruckus and CWNA and Cisco certifications, and then general network administration certifications and education, that's the team that goes to work on configuring these systems for you. So it's a very powerful team that goes ahead and makes those configurations and gets the system ready to go out the door. And then it's time to deploy it. So you would go out and you deploy your network based on what we call a PCL, which is a port connection list. And this would come in the box with the gear. You get your network switches, you get your access points, and you have this port connection list. And it shows you, one, how all the gear connects, and two, what ports are available for each part of your project, whether it be security, outdoor audio in general, maybe some type of lighting system or media over IP. Those ports are all going to be assigned based on what you gave us. And then it's important to remember that doesn't mean that it has to stay that way. So on that first day, when everything's fired up and starting to run, you complete that health check. And you call in and have our team do that for you. So your team can continue to roll on the project, putting things in, installing, cleaning things up, finishing the installation. Our team will run a health check. We'll let you know of any issues, help you solve those issues if there is any. And then we can also make changes. So if any of these ports need to change, you need to change SSIDs, passwords. Maybe the homeowner had one ISP and they decided to bring in a redundant ISP. We can add the redundancy for the ISP. Any of those things can happen on the first day of support. And from that point forward, you have 4 years of support from our team. So it's incredibly powerful and available to you. You also get, with that 4 years of standard support, you get 1 year of our Access Networks live monitoring service included with the system purchase. And that 1 year is where we're proactively monitoring the network devices that we've provided you. So that means that if we see an issue on that network, ISP down, if we see a switch come offline or an access point come offline or something that's throttling the network and it's causing some severe latency, we get alerted to that and then we let you know. And we do that after hours, nights and weekends. So a lot of times you can get ahead of something with your client. You can say, hey, there's an issue at your house. We are looking into it. We'll let you know as soon as we solve it. And they may not even be aware. And that's incredibly powerful from a relationship perspective, because you've just let them know that you're seeing something and you're proactively going to fix it. And the thing is that we do that for the first year included. And then if you want to add that service to your service plan for your client, it's $384 a year. Highly recommended. We actually have partners that say, oh, we didn't use it. And then they don't re-up. And then the next year, suddenly they have an issue and they want us to monitor it, or they got into some kind of issue with the client and they turn it back on. We see that all the time. So it's a very beneficial to you and your client. And one other last point is it's something that's different for us than most other solutions in the industry is when you look at something like an automation system or a lighting control system, it's not the guy who engineered it that's going to help you with support. It's not the guy that created the system that's going to help you with support if you have an issue. You usually have to go through their standard technical support people. And then if your issue is big enough or complex enough, they get an engineer involved. Well, that's not the way that we work. Our people that are answering the phones and talking to you online and doing all of these things to help support are the same people that configure the network. And that's rare because that means that they actually have a very deep knowledge level of what's happening at the very deep parts of that network. And that makes it, for troubleshooting, that makes it a lot quicker, and that helps us get to solutions quicker. And it also means that these guys don't want to give up. They don't ever want to be in a position where they tell you, we can't solve that, because that's not a good network experience. So they love to solve problems and find the actual cause of an issue, the root cause of an issue, and solve it and move on, not put a Band-Aid on it. So that's the post-deployment. So rounding that all up, why is it good for your business? Well, rinse and repeat even the largest projects, meaning you've got that project that comes across and it's a huge project, but you're a little concerned, maybe this is too big, maybe I don't have the network chops, or my team doesn't have the network chops to support this thing. How do we make sure we successfully complete this project? How do we make sure that we deliver the experience that they're asking us to deliver, especially when the network is the foundation of everything that you connect in that home? Well, we give you the ability to do that and never say no. So you can always say yes to that project. If they can dream it, you can dream it. We can build a network to support it, period. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. We've done it a bunch of times. We have dealer cost networks in the field that are over $500,000 to support multi-million-dollar AV projects. So doesn't mean they all have to be that expensive, but we absolutely can build it. We also have the peace of mind of proactive monitoring by our network engineers. We solve problems, so we don't leave you or your client hanging. That is very important, so that we're proactively looking at issues and solving those, hopefully before they become bigger issues or become an issue between you and your client. So the question is, where else would you find a complete engineered network with 4 years of support for a fixed cost? I mean, that's what we're offering you here, is a completely designed network, configured, designed, supported, monitored, all of that for the costs you saw in the estimate, outside of if you want to renew the live monitoring solution. And you can just add that in before you present it to the client if you want. So that means they're covered and you're covered for 4 years. That's incredibly powerful. It's a fixed cost, which is the best cost there is knowing what you're going to pay for something, because everybody hates it when you go to buy something and then they want to nickel and dime you, or you need to add on this or add on that. This is a fixed cost for 4 years, and it has an entire team, 35 plus people behind you to support you with education, marketing, sales techniques, engineering, design, whatever it is. You've hired that team for that fixed cost for that network. So it's incredibly powerful. Now, why is it good for your client? Well, we design networks that meet your client's demanding lifestyle, and they last. They're enterprise grade. They're built with high quality products. They're going to last a long time. I've been with the company 10 years. We still have partners calling in saying, hey, can you add this to this network? And the network's been up since 2009. And we're like, you're running 10-100. It's time to upgrade. We can't actually add it because it's way past its prime, but the network's still working. So the homeowner has never felt the need to replace it. It's kind of interesting that we run into those. We provide quick support for your team, and we have that monitoring, the proactive monitoring. So we're trying to do everything we can to limit downtime should any occur. We have the ability to solve very complex network issues or things on the network that are causing issues. And often we're alerting you you're alerting your client prior to those, prior to them being aware of it. And that's extremely important. And the best network is the one your client doesn't even know is there. So they're going to ask you, why am I paying so much for my network? And you're going to say, because my job is to deliver a network experience where it just works and you never even know it's there other than it's working. You don't want them to say, well, reboot this or restart that, or hey, my Wi-Fi is down, or any of those things. Those are bad network experiences. It should be completely invisible to their lifestyle. And so core networks are the way to deliver that, especially for these medium to large scale networks in complex automated homes. All right, any questions? If you have any, just pop them in the chat. And if not, we'll keep rolling here. I've got one more section to cover. So basic configuration. So we looked at all of our things that we've learned in core networks and custom design networks over the years, and we got partner feedback that said, "Hey, that's great. Every now and then I have this project that would work," or I've got 2 projects a year, 4 projects a year that core network makes sense, but I've got all these other projects, and I don't want to go hire a full-time IT guy because that's expensive. And I would still like to be able to do a lot of the configuration that you provide without having to commit to the deeper level of service and the proactive monitoring and all those things, because I use Oversee on my other projects or some other type of monitoring solution. And so, and I want to be able to manage those and react to those. And I'm not going to be selling a service contract or something like that. So we said, well, we've learned a lot over the last 10 to 15 years on how to configure networks and do it very efficiently and provide a very robust feature set without having to go into the very deep part of the configuration on every project. So that's what basic configuration services was born out of. Is what it is it's ideal for small to medium-sized networks, and what we're looking to do is create repeatability and standardization. So being able to have, by utilizing basic configuration, you have this ability to put that into your processes in your business and standardize your network deployments. And you can do just a switch, just an access point, just a router, or you can do all three, or you can do two. It doesn't really matter. You can mix and match. So whatever the need is for that particular project. Or our other core systems were, a complete network. This could just be the parts and pieces that show up configured. That allows you to streamline installation. As long as you've got a competent installer, meaning not necessarily an IT technician or one of your best programmers who maybe would make you a lot more money on the big project you're working on, but maybe your mid-level guy is just going to go out and install a complete network for an upgrade for a customer, and they don't necessarily have to have all the chops to program it, because we're going to do that for you. And so that allows you to save time on projects and have a ready to deploy network for those projects, or just these simple network upgrades. You could probably look at your client list and say, if I hired a guy that just went out and sold network upgrades, I could make a bunch of money. And this would allow you to do that. So the nice thing about this is, where on the big custom system, we are managing a lot of that for you. We give you access to parts of it, but not all of it, because if we give you access to like layer 3 core switching with multi-VLAN, that can get really messy. But with these, you have complete access. So once it's configured and we ship the gear to you, it's yours. You configure it. You have the configuration and passwords. You have access to everything. We've just merely provided a managed service of configuration for you. So your team is in complete control from that point forward of the network settings. Now, obviously, if somebody on the team messes something up because we sent it out in the field and it was working, and then we need to adjust this thing, and they just snafu'd something, we can help you sort that out. You still get support. You still get your 4 years of support on the Wi-Fi and the switches, and optional support on Sophos. And so you're able to still do all those things, and we're still here to help you out. But the important part is if you do this, you use this service, when your network shows up, it will work out of the box. So your SSIDs will be programmed, your router will be programmed, your switches will be configured. The access points will connect and provide Wi-Fi, wireless, and you can have a guest network. There's a lot of things that happen right out of the box. So you could technically have a working network. If you were just going to put a bunch of DHCP devices on the network, it would work. You wouldn't have to really touch the network at all. So all of the devices are configured before they send. All of the configured devices are QC tested before we send them out. So you're not going to get dead on arrival. So we know that everything works when we ship it. The nice thing about this also is any of these systems can be upgraded to a core network, because we're using the same gear. It's the same product, meaning the same router, the same switches, the same access points. So if the project scales, or you say, hey, you know what, this is getting very complex, my guys aren't comfortable, we want to change this into a core network, we can provide you a quote for that and swap it over to a core network. And then all of the products include our support and warranty for 4 years. So how does it work? So basically, you go into our portal, you start an order, and that can be your ordering person. If you have a separate person for that purchaser, they go in the portal, they select the products, they put them in a cart, they designate the person they want to provide us the configuration information. So that could be your project manager, your technician that's going to be on site, like SSIDs, passwords, IP configuration, those kind of things. They designate that person during the purchase process, and then they submit the order. Now, what happens when they submit the order is a couple of emails are going to be sent. One will be sent to the person who submitted the order saying, thanks for submitting the order. It's not complete technically at that point. What happens at that point is the person they designated will also receive an email that says, hey, this order for the Jones residence has been placed. Click this link to go configure to enter the configuration information for the system. It'll take them 5, maybe 10 minutes at most if it's a little bit larger to enter that information in. And then we take that information once it's complete, and that's when we start fulfilling the order. And we have a bunch of checks, automated checks on our system to make sure that that information is accurate. And if it's accurate, as long as it's accurate, we'll go ahead and configure the system, and we usually ship those within 2 business days. And again, we put it in a box, we put stickers on things that have been configured, we tell them how to plug things in on the stickers on the box, on the gear, we tell them which things to plug in first. So it's very much a plug and play solution with limited room for error on setting it up. And once everything's installed and up and running, they can either make changes or they can call our technical services team for assistance to make changes that maybe things have changed, or they want to change a configuration. They need to add DHCP reservations to something like that. We can help them with any of those kind of things. So very, very simple process, and can build actually very complex networks. Now, the products we use for these is our Sophos firewalls. So we have the 4 different firewall solutions. And basically the choice here is which ISP speed you're dealing with. If you're dealing with maybe a 500 gig or 500 meg ISP speed up to a little over 1 gig, you would select the proper model. It tells you all about that on our portal. And then you would select if you want an optional redundant power supply for these, or if you want a rack mount, you would select those as well. And these are the same devices that we use in our core networks. So you can see that you can easily change these things over to a core network if you needed to, because of the complexity of the system increase. We also have our switches, and these are the access network switches. We have 8 models, starting with that 12-port compact, going all the way up to a 48-port high-power PoE multi-gig switch. Any one of those is available in this as well, and you can pick up to 3 switches. So 1 firewall, 3 switches. So you can see if you pick 3 48-port switches, you actually can build a very large network in basic configuration services. And we configure the switches as well. They're 1 gig uplink and 10 gig uplink capability. Again, enterprise grade across the board. The big PoE switches, the 48-port ZPs, those have hot swappable power and fan modules. So you can get very robust solutions. And then we use our access points. Basic configuration services uses unleashed access points. The hardware is technically the same as what we use for ARC. So it's the same exact access point. It's just what firmware version is running on the access point. So we have 4 or 5 different indoor models and then 1 outdoor. And you can run up to 10 of these in a basic configuration deployment. Outside of past 10 access points, we recommend that you talk to our designers and make sure that we get you a good custom system design and look at the AP layout so to make sure we're not missing anything. But these access points are running unleashed. And if you're not familiar with unleashed is where the controller is actually running on one of the access points natively in the location. And that's how you would log into it. And this allows you can use Oversee to access that access point remotely. So if you still need to provide service, you can use Oversee to tunnel into it. So very robust solution. And again, these are the exact same hardware. So if you wanted to upgrade to a core network in the future, we just need to change the firmware on these so that they call into the cloud controller, and now they would be managed by ARC. So a lot of flexibility, a lot of ability to future-proof against the size of the system growing. And being able to accommodate whatever the client needs. So we have those access points, and then here's the cost. So for a router, dealer cost is $190. For switches, it's $110 each, and for wireless, it's $140. And that's what you pay, and then you can charge the client however you want to charge. You can charge them your normal labor rate on top of that, or you can charge them a flat fee, however you want to do it. Routers, this is enterprise grade, so it's a little more complex than your basic stuff. So it does require a little bit more knowledge, and we can train you how to do it yourself if that's what you desire. But we can also do it for you using this service. And so routers are $190 each. And one thing that's important is a lot of the time that's wasted on a site when you go to configure a network is actually firmware updates. You take all the product out of the box, it doesn't have the latest firmware because it's been sitting on a shelf somewhere for a while, and your technician starts going through the process of, hey, I need to update the firmware. Oh, and then there's another firmware update, and I need to update that. Half hour, an hour in, they're still updating firmware. They haven't even started configuring anything yet, or maybe they configured it and now they have to update their firmware. Whatever is happening there, it's taking a lot of time that is hard to charge the client for. I mean, if they really, got into the weeds with you on what you're charging for, is it their fault that they have to charge for firmware updates, so on and so forth. So what we do is we do all the firmware updates for you along with the configuration. So when it comes out of the box, if we shipped it 2 days ago, it's going to be on the most current firmware available. And that's a huge benefit from a time perspective. So if your technician, takes half a day to configure a complex network, we're easily going to make you money by doing this for you. And he can focus on the things that actually deliver a better experience, like tuning the color on the TV, making sure the surround sound processor is set up for the room, all of the things that sometimes we shortcut because as an industry, because we have to complete the job in a certain amount of time and we got stuck configuring something and not making the best possible experience for our clients. So this is a fixed cost way of deploying a network that is very efficient and effective. So why is it good for your business? Rinse and repeat small and medium network solutions with accuracy and standards. So being able to do this over and over again, once you understand the process and you've put it into your business processes, it's very easy to do, and it's very accurate, and it follows the best practices standards in the industry. So if you have turnover, if you have a technician leave that knew all the secrets and now you've got a new guy, you wouldn't have to worry about any of that. We're going to take care of all that for you. So the new guy would take a little bit of time to learn to install the gear and make adjustments rather than having to learn from scratch. So we're going to save time by doing the firmware updates for you, and make sure everything's functioning out of the box. And then any site specific changes that need to be made once it's there, we can train you to do that, or you can use our technical services team to help you do that. Again, standards and best practices are automatic in your business by using basic configuration services in your network solutions. That's a huge advantage is that you kind of just build in standards and best practices by using this service for networking, and then make more money. That's the ticket here, is to make more money. You have these fixed costs for configuring these things and getting them running out in the field so that you're going to have a functioning network out of the box. And that allows your team to focus on the important parts of delivering a home automation system, the experience that the client is expecting, the sound sounding the best, the video looking the best, the lighting working the way it should, the shades going up and down when they should. All of those things, you can spend the time on those things rather than having to have a guy that's sitting there tweaking on the network for hours on end trying to get something to work, because we can help you with all of that part. So questions, I don't see any in the Q&A, which is maybe good or bad. Maybe I've provided enough information where we don't have any questions.
No, don't gauge if this was worthwhile or not on that.
Yeah.
No, Charlie, Keenan, Kyle, Michael, Ricardo, Stephen, hit us up. Let's talk right now. It was a lot to digest, and the service packages that you have are, I think everybody's just starting to spin and going, this could be so useful. So let's ask some questions right now while we got the time, while we got these guys on there. In the meantime, remember, this is the third in this series, so hopefully you've already taken the other two, and if not, I'm going to get you an email with everything that's included in this. But Bryce, yeah, great job. I mean, there's just so much we can go down, and I know it's like this is kind of an abbreviated version of our live touring part of this, but let's see what we got. Here's one here, right here. Charlie, big picture, Snap One is gobbled up Hack Edge. Access Networks also has Arachnus, OvrC, etc.
I like Charlie. He just cuts to the chase.
He's just going right to it. What is going to stick? Tell me what's going to stick. You know what? No, they're very familiar with those brands through you from the past. So yeah, that's a great question, Charlie. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what is going to stick? 2 of the 4 that you mentioned will stick. And based on the fact that I'm presenting Access Networks and the things we do, and Arachnus isn't going anywhere, you probably could decipher that for yourself. OvrC definitely is going to stick. That is crucial to the Snap One business model and what we do as an organization. My role inside of Snap One, even though I run the Access Networks business and my deal is managed services, I also report to G. Paul Hess on the product management team. So I sit in product development. I'm a part of a lot of these things, and obviously a lot of stuff I can't talk about because we're a public company and we have to be careful what we say. But if you haven't seen the writing on the wall, the Arachnus, Access Networks, OvrC, those are the winning horses in the race. The technologies overlap on Arachnus and Access Networks very well, meaning Arachnus does a really good job on that low to medium level. And then once you get into enterprise or these larger scale, that's where you step into Access Networks. And we've got OvrC enablement on the roadmap for Access Networks, access points on the Unleash side, and other things in the future. So these things are coming, and they're going to be extremely beneficial to our partners once we get them out the door. How many VLANs
Yeah.
does Access Network support? 254. You'll never use all 254, and actually we have solutions that allow you to do what's called dynamic VLANing. Dynamic VLANing is used typically in the commercial space where an end user is joining a network through a login rather than being administered into the network. And there's a dynamic VLAN that's created at that point. So we have a solution that actually does that, and then it's pretty much limitless. Like we can do thousands of VLANs. So out of the box, we typically stick with around 6. If you're going more than 6, we want to know why. What's the business case for more than 6? Or what's the use case for more than 6? Because a lot of the devices now are interconnected, meaning you've got all these cloud computing devices that need to connect to the homeowner. They also need to connect to an automation system. And the processing power in a lot of the gear right now is very good. So you can actually put a lot of devices in a single VLAN and still have a very good network experience. Where we typically look at isolating VLANs is security cameras, media over IP, voice over IP phone systems, those kind of things. We kind of want to isolate that traffic, but make it accessible to other parts of the network. As a standard, this is getting pretty deep, we do not block cross VLAN communication. Meaning, if you have an automation controller on one VLAN and it needs to look at a camera system on another VLAN, we do not block that traffic as a standard, as long as it knows the destination. If you want to block that traffic in the circumstances of a guest network, we absolutely do. But in business applications, sometimes we do need to block it from a security perspective, and we do that as well. So incredibly flexible and nimble. That was a long-winded answer for a how many VLANs do you have? So a lot of options there.
Nice. Any other questions, guys, while we got Bryce and team on standby here? Yeah, that earlier question, I wondered, for your product development hat anyway, with where you see the future, I mean, do you feel like you've got, a completely blank slate, or do you have to kind of stick with, what certain brands have gone away and how you continue to integrate those and enhance those, going forward? And, where do you see those things? And is that really truly in your control with all things considered?
Yeah, I work very closely with Brian Holden, and Kyle, I'll get to your other question here in a second. I work very closely with Brian Holden. So we have a very good relationship as far as like what Access Networks needs to provide services versus where we want to go from a product roadmap perspective, because they don't always align, and we have to make sure as an organization we align the two. I wouldn't say it's a blank slate, but I would say that we have a very we have a very good eraser for our slate, so we can make changes as needed, and we've already done some of that. And we've got 2 really good manufacturing partners that allow us to make those decisions. So the future is very bright, and we have a lot of really cool things coming down the pipe for networking. Kyle, how easy are your firewalls to config? They are enterprise grade. So if you're thinking it's a Netgear or an Eero or something like that, it is not. But we do some on every firewall we ship. We put a template in. It's not completely configured like we do with basic configuration, but we do apply a template to it that makes the wizard easy to finish. And we have about an hour-long training to take that would take you through how to configure one of them. And it's going to take you through all the surface level. Now you can get deep. I mean, these things will go super deep, but in most residential applications, you do not need to do that. And as far as rules are concerned, we don't turn on the full suite of firewall capability unless it's in a core system, because most partners don't have an understanding how to manage a cybersecurity appliance. If you do and you want to go down that road, we're happy to set you up and get you training and get you all the tools you need. And if you're using a third-party solution, it would move everything directly into the firewall from a management perspective, and we can absolutely do that for you. In the custom core networks, we have a whitelist, blacklist that we already have configured that is preloaded to make things work and block things that shouldn't come into the network. An example of that is there is a rowing machine called a Hydra, which is like it's got a water tub in it that's the resistance for actually rowing, and it's Wi-Fi connected, and it uses a really weird URL to go out and find information, and our network was blocking it. And so we had to add that to the whitelist to make sure it wasn't accepted. Those are the kind of things that we catch in the world of IoT to make sure that we are have a valid list of devices that we're allowing traffic out and also still protecting the network the best we can. So good questions. Great questions. So, all right. Any other questions?
All right, guys. Really appreciate it. What a great, at least a cap to, not only the training that we've got going live, but this will be a really good reference point for guys to go back and watch. So I urge you guys, pass this to your teams. There's a lot of data in here with what Nathan covered earlier in the month and what we just went over with Bryce. Bryce, thank you so much. Yeah, your elevated view. I love the GM perspective in a sense. You're able to talk comprehensively about the whole thing, and some of your ideas going forward is always refreshing to hear.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and if you need to reach out, the people on this screen is the ones you want to reach out to. That's my team. They're actually going to do the work. I just talk a lot. So use these guys. You can also use sales@accessnetworks.com or client services@accessnetworks.com. We'll get you connected and get you more information.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. You got 3 minutes back in your day. Thanks for joining the weekly webinar series. As always, check my events section for future dates coming up. Holly, can't thank you enough. We'll get together on the marketing and get back out to our partners and so forth. Bryce, again, thank you so much, my man. We'll see you around our partner stores. If you ever want to get into the partner stores and maybe even see Bryce or any of the guys, if you're more regional anyway, hit me up. Let's see what we can set up. Always willing to talk and get you guys into the partner stores and have the discussion going further. All right, guys, from all of us, Snap One Partner Stores, cannot thank you enough. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks Bryce.
Gary.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks.